Good morning. So the topic today is the light of the world. I liked that Bob chose that song. It says it only takes a spark to get a fire going. And what I want to talk about today is specifically, the event at Madison Square Garden and True Mother's speech. And this sermon is going to be sort of about her words and also kind of my personal reflection. I'd like to start by quoting Jesus. As far as we know, these are his words, most of them. In Matthew it says, "Now when Jesus saw the crowds, he went up on a mountainside and sat down. His disciples came to him and he began to teach them. He said, 'Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you.'" This is the first part of the Sermon on the Mount. So here, in a very simple way, Jesus is defining the kind of attitude and heart and spirit that people are supposed to have. To be meek, to seek righteousness, to be pure in heart, to be persecuted for doing that which is good. All of these are the qualities that a person needs to have. And Jesus is making a promise in a way. And God also made the promise. "I will bless you. I promise you, if you make the effort to live this life, I promise someday the blessing is going to come." The entire book of Revelations is about the promise of God establishing his kingdom of heaven on earth once and for all. It's a promise that God made. And all through history, people of faith have clung to that promise. But then he goes on to talk about, he says, "You are the salt of the earth. But if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." That's the desire of Christ. Says, look, you go out and do good and shine your light. And when you do that, then people will know God. People will know God because of you. And I want to say that essentially is really what True Mother's speech was about. I had, when we first heard about True Mother coming to Madison Square Garden to speak, those of us that are here in North Carolina, and maybe if we're not so connected to headquarters, we weren't really involved directly in the whole process of planning it out. and organizing and sort of figuring out how is this going to take place. I intuitively understood that this is all going to take place in New York City, basically. Yes, all of our members are going to mobilize, we're going to get on buses, and we're going to go there. But other than us going there, what are we really going to do? Are we really going to invite guests? Are we thinking we're going to bring a group of people from North Carolina to New York City? I think we sort of understood it's going to take place in New York. So Sharon was very strong. She wanted to go to New York to support. I did not want to go to New York City to support. I wanted to go on the bus just from here. I just didn't feel, in a way, I didn't feel connected in some levels with the whole event. We supported, but I didn't understand or didn't comprehend or didn't feel, what is the providence of this? Why is this really taking place? What's going to be accomplished if True Mother goes to Madison Square Garden and speaks to a group of our members and the guests that come? And these were the feelings that I had then. But my wife is she's very pushy and very adamant, and she insists, so okay, I'll go. So we got on a train Monday before, the Saturday, and we went to New York, and we stayed in Brooklyn with someone, Maria Vargas, that was there with UPF, and we tried to support. Honestly, the people that were there already were so busy. We saw, when you go to the 12th floor of the World Mission Center, that's where everything takes place. Everything is happening on the 12th floor. Has anybody been to the 12th floor? You know what I'm talking about. The entire floor belongs to Family Fed. So every office, UPF, CARP, Women's Federation, every office you can name that's connected to anything our movement is doing, someone has an office there. And so when we first got there, we could see Dr. Balcom was there, Mike Jenkins was there, Bishop Kim was there, and all of all the key people were there, and the organizers, and of course Benji was there, and everyone. So they're so busy, and we weren't directly involved, but we ended up helping Tom McDivitt and UPF make phone calls to congressmen and senators to invite them to an event that took place in Washington, D.C. on Thursday. And it was, an event that was very important and good. There was a group of Japanese dignitaries from Japan, from the Diet. The Japanese Diet, it's called the Diet, the senators and congressmen, and then Korean senators parliamentarians were there, and then American congressmen were going to meet with them to discuss North Korea. So we talked about that. So the bottom line is, we were trying to support and trying to help, and then we had an opportunity on Thursday. We went to Harlem, and we went and we met with we went out on the streets. And at that time, at that point, a lot of the young, you saw a lot of the second gen had come, and they were supporting. And so CARP members were sent out to go to Harlem and to support the pastor that was there. And what members had done is they'd gone to many churches. And how many of you saw the event on video already? You saw MSG. And, okay, you didn't see it yet. Okay, it was mostly a gospel event. There was a lot of gospel singing. There was a 2,000-person choir. There was dancing. It was really a Holy Spirit-filled, Pentecostal type, gathering. And it was beautiful. It was wonderful. But of course, from my perspective, this is all about True Mother coming to speak. What is she going to say? So, one thing that I felt very strongly when I was going through New York in the streets And I just felt, wow, people are really kind of friendly. People are, people really are aware that we're all in this together. I had this sense that New York has changed. Everything that was going on, I was comparing to the first time when Father came to Madison Square Garden. Because I was there. I went out on the streets of New York, and I tried to get people to come to Father's speech. And I remembered Father being at that speech. And I remembered our members gathering outside and getting ready to get in, and I remembered the incredible amount of people that were there trying to get in. And then there were also so many protesters. The communists were protesting, the Christians were protesting, and it was just massive. And then inside, it was completely filled. And then True Father comes and he starts speaking. And he spoke for almost 3 hours, maybe 2 hours at least, with Dr. Bohi Pak translating. And he went into such detail, explaining about the mission of the Messiah, about the second coming. It would happen not on the clouds, but it has to be a person born on the earth. And he explained the meaning of the clouds, using Bible quotes. He talked about John the Baptist, using the Bible and the Scripture. He explained clearly that Jesus didn't come to die. He talked about the difficult life of Jesus when he was growing up. And he was quoting the Bible. It was a 2-hour Bible lesson. And it was thorough and complete. And, it was Father explaining, the mission of Jesus from the beginning to the end. And talking about, Malachi, the prophecy, before that great terrible day, Elijah must come, explaining the meaning of Elijah, everything that we study in the divine principle. Father explained in great detail. And it was, incredible. So I'm here thinking, what about Mother? What is Mother going to do here? 43 years ago, Father was there at Madison Square Garden. And now, Mother is there. And also, we were blessed. The first big international, worldwide, record-breaking marriage that captured the attention of the world took place in Madison Square Garden. Many of us were there. We were the ones that were blessed there. So, the day of the event, I went out on the street. I had been staying at the New Yorker, and I got up and went out and was getting ready to go. And I walked through the streets, and as I approached Madison Square Garden, this was about 1:30. The doors were going to open at 2 o'clock, and I could see this massive amount of members, people. First, I thought they were people. But then as I looked closer, I started seeing all these different people that were coming from all these different states. And they were all in kind of a line, and they were all moving toward the door because the buses had to, the buses that were coming from out of state had to go to certain areas. And then they were being, ushered in and lined up. But they were predominantly our members. And I thought, wow, here it is. This is a big group of people. And everybody's starting to go in. It's looking like, hey, this is going to work. It's going to be successful. And as I walk through the line, and I see Kevin Thompson and different people from California and, John Jackson and people. And then I'm walking through the line, and then I saw them with the signs, the protesters, and passing out the flyers. And I thought, oh my, here they are. It's just like 43 years ago. And I look, and it was us. It was our own members out there protesting, passing out flyers against Mother. It was the sanctuary members with the big posters standing out there. I thought, wow, I did not expect this. And then I started standing back and looking. First of all, of course, I took the literature. I had to read, what is it they're going to say? And I read the literature, and, during the next hour, I took time to try to, there was 2 people in particular that I spoke to because I hadn't seen them. I hadn't seen them in 30 years. And they remembered me, and I remembered them, and I wanted to speak to them. And so, of course, they tried to convince me, and I said, well, I explained this, and they explained that, and then they accused me of being arrogant, and can you imagine me arrogant? No. Anyway, they accused me of being arrogant, how can, and I tried to explain to them, but I looked at the content of what they were saying. It was so shallow. It really is so very shallow. Their accusation against True Mother, is really it doesn't have, what do you call it? It doesn't have legs. It doesn't have depth. It's very superficial. Oh, True Mother is, she doesn't talk about Father anymore. She's only making herself great. That's not true at all. It's quite the opposite, actually. If you take time to really research, you find out the Mother is constantly thinking about Father. Things like, anyway, my point is not to go into detail. But I also stood back and I started looking at this event. I say, here we are. We're filling up the place. And I went as I went inside and I began to experience being in there, I knew that about 4,000 or 5,000 people that were in there were members that had come from out of state. And then basically it was a total of about 14,000 people. It was filled correctly and the way that we wanted it to be filled, and the event was beautiful, and the singing and the praising, and you can have all kinds of people give you all kinds of reports. And then True Mother came out and she gave her speech, which I heard but couldn't understand because I couldn't get the translation. I had my phone, but in the beginning they didn't put the phone number at the very beginning. They had given information, but as the program went on, just before True Mother came out, I didn't get any phone numbers. Finally, the phone number came on. I started dialing the phone number, putting my headphones in. Busy signal, the whole time. I was up here and I was looking down on my wife, Sharon, sitting way down with another group of people, She was walking around going like this. Lots of people didn't even hear the translation, unfortunately. Most did, but many were like me. It just didn't work. And it was, to be very honest with you, it frustrated me a little bit. Although, I'm sitting there thinking, hey, this isn't for me. I'm not here for me. True Mother isn't going to say something that I'm not aware of. But there was something about the fact that, I couldn't hear the translation. So after the program, after Mother finished speaking and the program was over, I got up and I walked out. And I started walking around on the street just praying for the event and looking at things that were going on. But one thing I felt just as I was going inside, I was standing there and I was watching kind of from a distance, and I was looking at all of our members and all of the guests and everybody piling in and funneling in and going through and the police were there and security was there and the protesters were there and then people were going in. But I was looking out at New York. There's a city out there with millions of people, and they have no idea what's going on right now in Madison Square Garden. They have nothing to do with it directly. So then again, I'm thinking, so why are we here? Who is this for? What is this about? And then, as the days went on, after the event, the next morning, we went to Belvedere. And how many went to this event and were at Belvedere? Okay, Belvedere is the place where True Father used to come every Sunday in the garage, and he used to teach us. He gave us so much love and attention, and he just educated us so thoroughly and so completely. And also Belvedere, after Madison Square Garden, after Yankee Stadium, after these major events that took place, Father would come and speak to us and explain to us. Sometimes for 3, 4, 5, 6 hours, he would go in detail about what was going on, why we did this, where we go from here. And so when I went back to Belvedere this time, and buses were arriving, and there were so many members, there were members that I hadn't seen in 20 and 30 years, and we were gathering there. And I went into the garage where Father used to speak, and I was reflecting and praying and thinking, wow. And I realized that this was like a 40-year reunion. This was like coming back to a beginning point, making a new beginning, a new start. And at this time, I still hadn't heard Mother's speech. I didn't get a chance to go through Mother's speech until 3 or 4 days later when it finally was translated on Family Fed. So I'd like to continue by talking about what did Mother say, because I read the speech, I sent it out. And it's very interesting. The very beginning, the first 2/3 of Mother's speech is she's taking the time to try to explain an overview of the providence. She talks about God as the parent. God created Adam and Eve as his children, but his children failed. They became not selfish. She used the word greedy. She says they became greedy and they fell away, and then, God was working, and God, just as God needs to find a new a man that can be in Adam's position, God has to find a woman to be in Eve's position. And when the Messiah comes, and she explains, like Father used to do, only very generally. When I read the translation of Mother's speech, the first 2/3 of it, as a person who, studies the principle and tries to explain the details of the principle to people so that we can understand it properly, I thought, this is an overgeneralization, or, I wouldn't have used that word. But it doesn't matter. Mother was trying to share or explain about the providence of God in her own words, from her point of view. And she talked about the Han lineage. And she said that just as God had to prepare a man, God must prepare a woman to receive. And she kind of was focused on the idea that, and she said in Korea, in 1943, I escaped from North Korea to South Korea with the help of my mother. And so God's chosen daughter, God's begotten daughter could come to South Korea so that we could continue God's providence. She was talking about her situation. And then, let's look at the last 1/3 of Mother's speech. She talks about America. She says, America was supposed to take responsibility as a nation, blessed in relation to heaven's providence, but it was suffering from so much individualism, family breakdown, and youth issues that one could not bear to look an inch into America's future. It was also facing the threat of communism. She's brought us up to the 1980s. My husband believed that the way to save America was the way to save the world. Therefore, he told a famous doctor of political science to declare the failure of communism. That was in 1985. What happened? Communism fell 5 years later. Yeah, it fell because of an incredible effort by True Parents and all of our members and people working so hard, and through the Washington Times. And it didn't just fall because of a declaration by a political scientist, but Father had told them, believe me, communism is about to disappear. She said that was not all. True Parents brought 3,000 young people from a communist environment, the Soviet Union, to the United States and taught them. As a result, these people were able to protect their nation from the threat of communism. This is very true. My daughter Kiva, the reason her name is Kiva is because when these students came here, I was a bus captain, and I was on the bus with a group of students from the Ukraine, and the capital of the Ukraine is Kiev. And Kiva was born while I was on that bus trip. And so we got this inspiration. I wanted to give her a name, and we named her Kiva after the capital of the Ukraine. Specifically because, we were with these students at that time. This was before the fall. These students went back to Russia, and when there was protests in Russia, many of them were on the front line. They had been to America, they had met us, and then when it came time to stand up against communism in their own country, some of them were there standing up. So there was a connection. Always God is making a connection. The world is unaware of this. Even without the cooperation of any nation, let alone that of America, true parents overcame unspeakable and indescribable difficulties. It took more than 50 years to reach where we are today. During that time, the Family Federation has established blessed families in more than 120 nations. To me, this is the consummate phrase, the consummate paragraph of True Mother's speech. The world is unaware, even without the cooperation of any nation, let alone America, true parents overcame unspeakable and indescribable difficulties. It took more than 50 years to reach where we are today. During that time, the Family Federation has established blessed families in more than 120 nations. That is the consummation. That's the culmination. That's the meaning of who is father and who is mother and what did they do, so she can go through the entire history and you and I can study the history for 100 years, and we can look at the history books and talk about it and learn it and everything. But the bottom line, in the end, this is the consummation of history. Without anyone else's support, really, because in every case, even in America, true parents were resisted, persecuted, misused, or misunderstood at the very least, and only a core group of people united with true parents, became blessed by true parents, and all throughout the world, Father blessed the 36 couples, the 72 couples, the 120, the 430, the 777, 1800, 2000s, all the way up, from the individual level all the way to the world level, to the cosmic level. Father gave the blessings. In the year 2000, Father proclaimed the blessing of 400 million couples. In 1999, he proclaimed the blessing of 360 million couples. That's the purpose, and that's what Mother was proclaiming. She came to Madison Square Garden, and she explained in her own words, this is what the True Father did, and now this is what I, True Mother, has also done with True Father. Not only True Father did this, but I also did this with him. So she's sharing that with the world now, and she explains it this way. Fallen humankind cannot return to God. They need to receive engrafting by the true parents, who among all human beings achieved victory. That is the blessing which the Family Federation offers. When this nation and the world is overflowing with these blessed families, God's dream, humankind's hope, true parents' hope, and the one human family's hope can become reality. The hope of everyone. Everybody wants peace. I remember, in the 1970s, the communists out marching. They want peace, peace, peace. Peace at any cost, peace. Everyone wants peace. But nobody seems to know how to achieve it. Only God and true parents can bring real peace. How? Through the blessed families. The blessed families are the core and the key, because we bring the love, the compassion, the concern, the care of true parents and God to the rest of the people. That day is not far away. True parents blessed Korea and Japan as the central nations of the providence, and America as the eldest son nation. These three nations need to unite, and on the foundation of a revolution in the culture of heart, based on a heart of filial piety, we need to begin the era of the Pacific Rim civilization from Asia. I look at my life. I joined the church when I was 19 years old. And I think, who influenced me the most? And I remember all of us early members here in America, we owe so much. First and foremost, maybe more than the Korean members to the Japanese members. Because the Japanese members came under Father's guidance and Father's direction. They came to America as missionaries. And they had united with Koreans. And if you know the history of Japan and Korea, Koreans and Japanese, they can hate each other because they abused each other so much. It was mostly one-sided, but the reality is that God worked through the Korean people. God used the Koreans, and then centered on Japan, the Cain and Abel. Father went to Japan. He loved Japan. He shed blood in Japan. He worked to try to liberate Japan from communism even. And he changed the hearts of the Japanese. And Japan and Korea became a united country centered on true parents. The members who came to America from Korea and Japan, they are the ones that witnessed to us, to the Americans. And then God made America a nation of a central importance. And then all the Koreans and the Japanese and the Americans came here and have worked for so many years, and true parents lived here. Half of their children born here. Korea, Japan, and America. Those are the nations. If we look at the entire history of the Unification Church, that's where everything took place that was important. And I'm very inspired because I also remember certain German leaders, certain French leaders, certain English leaders that came to America. You know, Martin Porter, Rainer Vincennes, Paul Werner, so many important people, precious European leaders and members that came representing Europe. And so God made them a part of His providence also. But this already has taken place. It's finished. It's done. Centered on these three nations. And I reflect and I think, yeah, this was real. It's not a story, America, Japan, Korea. Really, our relationship. How many American members are blessed to Japanese sisters or brothers? That was real, that took place. Now, only we in this room understand this. Like Mother said, nobody understands this. Nobody is aware of this. But she explained it. When the footsteps of blessed families and young people of the Youth Federation across the 5 oceans and 6 continents become sparks and lights in front of the world, 7.4 billion people will flock as one towards those lights. We need to create such an environment. We are the light of the world. True Mother says, you've got to become like sparks and lights. Go out and shine your light. The love that true parents gave us, we have to give that to everyone else. That's all we have to do now. Theology doesn't matter anymore. Sociology, history, science, religion, politics, the arts, they're simple tools. They're methods of people, supposed to be ways of people entertaining and enjoying themselves and progressing the ideal of God. But the essence of life is centered on a relationship with God, centered on the family of love, true love. And that's what true parents give. That's the thing that they give, is they give the love of the father and the mother, the original ideal that Adam and Eve were supposed to achieve that couldn't. They have planted that during their lifetime. And through the blessed families, they loved us, and now we are to love each other unconditionally. It doesn't matter what you think. It doesn't even matter what you feel. It's what you are. In the scriptures, in the book of Revelations, when people are judged, it says that the books will be opened and everyone will be judged according to their works. Not according to, well, I thought this, or I believed that, or, I felt this, or, no, it's about their entire life, their works, their actions, their lives, what they actually did with their life. Who do they love? That's what true parents do. It says we need to create such an environment. We can't force people to do anything. You know that, right? Even parents have a special ability given by God. A special permission, as you will. Parents have God's permission for a certain period of time to use force on their children. Parents can, they can grab the arm, drag their kids, they can pick them up when they're crying and put them in the seats, they can put them in timeout, they can hit them on the bum if they want. And it's okay. And the child, if the parents really love their children, and the children know that their parents love them, it's not a problem. That kind of force, that kind of physical, if you were a liberal, you would describe it as physical violence against your children. But in some limited capacity, it's our responsibility as parents to do that. But it only works for a certain period of time in the lives of the children. Once they reach a certain age, even though you are still their parents, you have to be very careful how you guide them. You can't force them. Eventually you're going to have to let go. You know the phrase, let go and let God. Because it's about creating an environment. At a certain point, parents no longer directly influence their children, but they should have created an environment where their children feel comfortable, where their children feel loved and respected and appreciated and valued. So that whatever they decide and choose to go through, the environment around them is going to be supporting them and helping them, encouraging them, moving them forward. That's God's providence. God can't force people to do things. Especially now. In the Old Testament age, you read stories of violent actions. But that wasn't God committing violent acts. That was fallen mankind, Cain-like people committing acts of violence. Anyway, 7.4 billion people will flock as one toward those lights. We need to create such an environment. A world of genuine freedom, equality, peace, unity, and happiness is not far off when all of you gathered here today become one with true parents and practice living for the sake of others with true love towards those around you, your tribe, your church, and your nation. We can build a united world with our own hands. That's Mother's concern. That's her heart. So she spent, 20 minutes speaking about the providence, and this is the essence of what she's saying and what she's teaching. Ladies and gentlemen here today, I hope that all of you unite with me and become sparks that light up this dark world and guide people to God's bosom. God bless America. May this country, blessed by God, truly uphold this statement. May you never forget that essence and become lights in the world with redoubled courage. Sharon and I went to the Havelock. We were in Havelock yesterday because one of the Japanese sisters there wanted to bless some of her neighbors. And so we wanted to do this blessing ceremony. And unfortunately, the guests never showed up. But we stayed the night at Yukio Takeda house. And we were sitting in the living room, and she asked me a question. She looked at me and she said, "Why does True Mother speak so much about Han, about her lineage like that?" And the moment she asked me that question, because of everything that I had just experienced in the last week, being at Madison Square Garden, having prepared, reading this speech, and going back to Belvedere and seeing the sanctuary church out there, then I understood very clearly. I said, oh, because this is Mother's time to explain her part of the providence. Father spent 43 years explaining to all Christians and to the world about the mission of the Messiah, specifically the masculine aspect and why Father was taking Jesus' role and how Jesus couldn't accomplish and Father had to accomplish, and then Father and Mother have to become the true parents. But predominantly, it was Father explaining from the viewpoint of the providential role of the Father. But Father is not here now. This is Mother's opportunity. Before she goes to the spiritual world, it's her opportunity to say, you know what? Not only God prepared a man, God also prepared a woman. God also worked to prepare women. Because Mother wants to elevate the role of women. Because we are all of equal value. Women are different than men. They have a different responsibility, a different role, a different capacity. Their hearts are different. They have a different way of thinking. Everything is different. But it doesn't make anyone less or more valuable to God as a son or daughter. And so it was very clear to me. It became very clear. Oh, Mother can say whatever she wants about the Han lineage and about her, her life, because she's equal with Father. Father and Mother are equal. Mother was a participant just as much as Father. And now Mother is taking time to explain. Not only, the Moon lineage was prepared, but also, the Han lineage. And then the accusation is, one of the accusations is Mother is kind of not united with Father anymore. In fact, one of the criticisms that I read implied that Mother thinks that she's united with Jesus, and Jesus and Mother have become the true parents, and she's pushing Father away. And where does that come from? And that is kind of strange. But when we were at Yukio's house, I looked over on the wall, and I saw the calendar. Which calendar is that over there?
July.
Well, which year? Well, probably this year.
2007.
Okay. The Family Fed puts out those calendars, right? Look at the pictures on those calendars. Who do you see? You see only Mother in those calendars? No. Go ahead, look at them. Mostly they're Mother and Father together. All pictures of Father and Mother together. Now, there are a few pictures where Mother's by herself or where Mother was with a group of people. But I counted the pictures on Yukio's wall. 8 of them. 8 of them were pictures of Father and Mother together. So if a person is really, trying to push Father aside, they're not going to let the Family Federation send out a calendar with pictures of true parents together like that. Again, the point is this. The point is very simple. Sanctuary church, all of the things that are going on in the world, that's not important. The only thing that's important is that we realize that God has sent the true parents. And the true parents have been victorious. They are the true parents. And they created thousands of blessed families. And if you are a blessed family, or a part of a blessed family, then your role, your mission, your responsibility as a child of God, as God's son or daughter, is to love your parents. You know, another point came to me. Why is Mother talking about her role so much in this providence? Because her children aren't. Because her children aren't. You know, when Father came, he needed a John the Baptist. Billy Graham was supposed to be the John the Baptist in America. If you ever study the life of Billy Graham, I mean, it's incredible. Sadly, you know, the man is still writing books about how Jesus is coming on the clouds and how, you know, some of us are going to end up in hell forever. But the point is, Father needed a John the Baptist. He needed people to be able to help the rest of Christianity understand his role as the Messiah. Mother's role is as a true mother. So who is supposed to testify? Who is the John the Baptists for a mother? It's the children. The children are supposed to love their mother and support their mother and encourage their mother and help their mother, no matter what. Sadly, most of the children don't seem to kind of comprehend or understand their role. Their role is to love their parents. If they want the world to respect them, they should love and respect their parents. Because that's where the power of God is. The power of God is when people love each other. You forgive, you love, you unite. That's the power of God. And, you know, unfortunately, mother's own children don't get it. But we need to get it. We need to love mother and pray for mother and support mother and accept mother and believe and trust. As much as we believe and trust and accept Father, we should believe and trust and accept mother. And I'm going to share one more point. I was sitting with someone, I know it's getting late later. One more point. I was sharing with my daughter, Kiva, at breakfast. And she asked me, oh, what was it like in New York? And I started telling her about, you know, being at Madison Square Garden and going in. And I said, yeah, there were some protesters out there. She said, really? I said, yeah, they were the Sanctuary Church. And she went, what? The Sanctuary Church? What are they protesting? I said, well, they're protesting against mother. And she looked at me without even batting an eye. She said, you mean when they can complain about a husband who had already been married several times, who's probably had relationships with many different women, who possibly had children from different women, they can complain about a husband like this, or they complain about a wife who has never had a relationship with anyone but her husband and gave birth to 14 children. And when she said that, it's like a light bulb went off in my head. I said, whoa. I said, that's an interesting way of looking at it. Father's life has been filled with controversy. Now, she didn't mean to say Father was this kind of person, but she was making the point. Look at Father's history and look at, he was actually married before he met Mother. You know, there was possibly, you know, we have the story of different people being born, you know, what's his name? So she made the point, and I thought, wow, that's a very interesting point. Has anyone ever questioned Mother's fidelity to Father? Has anyone ever doubted that mother has ever had any love or any relationship with anyone other than father? No. That by itself is a powerful testimony. A powerful testimony to who mother is. So, I hope what I take away from this event is that I realize and I understand now more clearly the meaning of mother's role and father and mother together, and that we really do need to pray for mother and support her and accept her. And it's okay if she wants to talk about the Han lineage or whatever, it doesn't matter, because those things are not important. It's not; those things aren't going to stand. You know, we can sit and discuss and debate, oh, was father born with sin, without sin? You know, how did this happen? You know, and that's what theologians did, centered on Jesus for all this time. That's why you have 300 denominations of Christianity. But in the end, none of that matters. The only thing that really matters is that we can receive the love of God and accept the love of God through true parents and become blessed central families centered on true parents, and then love other people. Let our light shine to the world, because that's what true mother is asking of us.